The highest room in the tallest tower of Dragon Crest Palace was both a sanctuary and a prison. Sunlight, the color of liquid honey, streamed through the single large arched window, illuminating dust motes that danced like forgotten spirits. The room was opulently furnished with velvet drapes and silken cushions, but it was a gilded cage nonetheless. In the center of this room stood Princess Elsa. She was painfully beautiful, with hair the shade of polished silver and eyes that held the stormy gray of an approaching tempest. But it was the faint, almost imperceptible shimmer of sapphire scales that traced her collarbone and the backs of her hands that betrayed the truth. Inside her, slumbering and vast, lived an ancient fire dragon. Today was her 18th birthday. The heavy oak door creaked open, breaking the morning silence. King Deucalion entered, his broad shoulders seeming to fill the frame. His face, once handsome and open, was now etched with the deep lines of a perpetual weary grief. He was followed by a somber procession, her physician who monitored the dragon's vital signs, her trainer who attempted to teach her control through meditation, and Martha, her personal maid and only friend. Elsa. The king's voice was deep but softer than usual. "Happy birthday, my child." There was no cake, no celebration, no cheering crowds. Only this grim, annual visitation. Martha offered a small, wrapped box. Elsa took it without looking, her gaze fixed on the world outside her window, the sprawling city of Dragoncrest, the green forests, the distant, free-flying hawks. "Make a wish, Elsa," Deucalion said, the ritual feeling hollow in the quiet room. She didn't turn. Her voice, when it came, was clear and sharp as shattered crystal. "I wish to be free." The silence that followed was heavier than the stone walls. The physician shifted uncomfortably. The trainer studied the intricate patterns on the rug. Martha's eyes welled with tears. Elsa finally turned from the window, her stormy eyes sweeping over them. "You may leave me now," she said, her tone flat. "I wish to be alone." The king gave a curt nod, and the three attendants filed out, the door closing with a soft, final thud. Deucalion did not leave. He walked slowly to the window, standing beside his daughter but not looking at her. His gaze also fixed on the horizon. "It hurts me more than you can possibly imagine, Elsa," he began, his voice a low rumble. "To see you here day after day. You are my daughter. The last piece of your mother I have left." Elsa's composure cracked. "Then why? Why do you keep me locked away like a monster?" "I am not the dragon, father." "How's it?" "There is a difference." "It is a difference the world will not see," he countered, finally turning to face her, his own pain flashing in his eyes. "The prophecy is clear. The scion of fire, born of a queen's sacrifice, will unleash an inferno that consumes the earth if left unchecked. Your mother." His voice broke. "Your mother died in the struggle to contain the dragon's essence as it passed into you at birth. I will not lose you, and I will not let you lose control and become the instrument of this kingdom's destruction. Have you ever given me a chance?" Elsa's voice trembled with a decade of suppressed fury. "Just one chance to prove that I can control it. That the prophecy might be wrong. That I am more than just a vessel for destruction. The prophecy cannot be changed, Elsa." Deucalion's voice rose, edged with the fear of a king who had spent 18 years trying to outmaneuver fate. "I am not trying to punish you. I am trying to save you. I am trying to save everyone by keeping your power at bay. By caging me. By treating me as a thing to be managed." The air around Elsa grew warm. The scent of ozone, of a coming storm, filled the room. A faint sapphire glow pulsed beneath her skin. "You are not saving me, father. You are killing me slowly." She pointed a trembling hand towards the door, her eyes blazing with a hurt so profound it was a physical force. "Leave," she whispered, the word laced with fire. "If you cannot give me the only thing I have ever asked of you, then get out." King Deucalion looked at his daughter, truly looked at her, and saw not a prophesied destroyer, but a young woman whose spirit was being systematically crushed. He saw the ghost of her mother in the defiant set of her jaw. For a moment, it seemed he might say something more, might reach for her. But the weight of his crown, the memory of the prophecy, and the ghost of his dead queen held him fast. Without another word, he turned and walked out of the room. The lock clicked shut, a sound as familiar to Elsa as her own heartbeat. She was alone again, the echo of her wish for freedom the only thing to keep her company in the golden, suffocating silence. The heavy oak door of Elsa's tower clicked shut, the sound a final, mournful note in the tense silence. King Deucalion stood for a moment in the dim corridor. His broad shoulders slumped, the regal authority he wore like a cloak completely gone. He leaned his forehead against the cool stone, the image of his daughter's blazing, hurt-filled eyes seared into his mind. A gentle hand fell on his shoulder. Deucalion! The king didn't need to turn. It was Hiram. His voice a steady anchor in the storm of his thoughts. Hiram had been there since they were boys, had stood with him at his coronation, and had held his hand when they buried the queen. "It's Elsa," Deucalion murmured, his voice thick. "She looks at me as if I am her jailer. Am I a bad father, Hiram? Am I so consumed by being a king that I have forgotten how to be a parent?" Hiram's grip tightened. "You are the best of fathers and the best of kings. You carry a burden no man should have to bear. You are doing the best for her the only way you know how. To keep her safe is to keep the world safe." Deucalion pushed himself away from the wall, squaring his shoulders with visible effort. "The elders are waiting." "They are," Hiram confirmed, his expression turning grim. "The news from the front is not good. They grow impatient." The walk to the council chamber was a somber one. The vibrant tapestries depicting Dragon Crest's glorious history seemed to mock Deucalion's present failures. He entered the chamber to find the 12 elders seated around the ancient stone table, their faces etched with worry and a hard resolve. "Your Majesty," began Elder Valerius, the eldest among them, "we have received another dispatch. The village of Silverstream has fallen. Our forces are in full retreat. The losses in men and supplies are unsustainable. The people of Heimdall grow bolder by the day," added a younger, more fiery elder named Kale. "Their water dragon spirit may be less destructive than the ancient fire, but their control over it is absolute. They flood our fields, poison our wells, and turn our own earth to mud to trap our soldiers." Deucalion took his seat at the head of the table, his jaw tight. "I am aware of the situation. We must redouble our conventional efforts. Train more men." "With all due respect, Your Majesty," Elder Valerius interrupted, his voice gentle but firm. "Conventional efforts are no longer enough. We are losing this war. We are losing our land, our food, and the lives of our sons." A heavy silence fell. Then Kale leaned forward, his eyes intent. "It is time. The people are whispering it. The council is thinking it. It is time to unleash our own dragon. It is time for Princess Elsa to fight." A cold dread, colder than any fear of battle, gripped Deucalion's heart. "No," he said, the word a low, desperate growl. "The prophecy. The prophecy speaks of an uncontrolled inferno." Kale countered, slamming his hand on the table. "What if she is controlled? What if she is directed? She is our only hope." "The risk is too great," Deucalion argued, his voice rising. "I will not gamble the entire world on a what if. It is no longer a gamble, Deucalion. It is a necessity." Elder Valerius's voice cut through the rising tension. "Think, if the armies of Heimdall breach these walls, and they will, if this continues, what do you think they will do with the fire dragon? They will not cage it. They will find a way to harvest its spirit, to take its power for themselves. And in doing so they will kill Elsa. Your caution will have saved no one. It will have only delayed the inevitable and delivered the most powerful weapon in the world directly into the hands of our enemies. Her death, and the destruction of everything we hold dear, will be for nothing." The words struck Deucalion with the force of a physical blow. He saw the brutal, unvarnished truth in their eyes. He was trying to protect his daughter from a prophecy, but in doing so, He was steering her towards a far more certain and immediate doom. He looked from one stern, resolute face to another. They saw a weapon. He saw his little girl. The chasm between their perspective and his own was unbridgeable. Without a word, King Deucalion rose from his seat. The legs of his chair screeched against the stone floor, a sound of raw protest. His face was a mask of anguish and fury. Fury at the war, at the elders, at the prophecy, and at the impossible choice that was being forced upon him. He turned and strode from the council chamber, leaving a stunned silence in his wake. He would not give them his daughter. Not yet. Not while he still drew breath. But, far away in another kingdom, in a stone castle ancient as time itself, sweet melodies drifted from Prince Jared's chambers. It was a thing of fragile beauty, a delicate cascade of notes from his silver-stringed harp that spoke of lonely moonlit lakes and whispering reeds. To anyone listening, it was the sound of a soulful artist, not the heir to the throne of Heimdall, the vessel of the water dragon, and the most feared weapon in the ongoing war. The music was his only true rebellion. To the outside world, he was the Ice Prince, a being of ruthless efficiency and chilling power, a commander who froze battlefields and shattered armies without a flicker of emotion. But the truth was a cage far more confining than any dungeon. His father, King Talon, had forged him into a weapon, and the hilt was gripped with an iron fist. The reason for Talon's obsession, his burning hatred for King Deucalion, was a story etched in fire and betrayal, a story Jared had heard like a catechism since childhood. 3 decades ago, Talon and Deucalion were not kings, but princes of neighboring, allied kingdoms. They were more than allies. They were friends, and they both loved the same woman, a brilliant, fiery noblewoman named Lyra. Lyra's heart, however, belonged to Deucalion. Talon, consumed by a jealous love, challenged his friend for her hand in a traditional duel of honor. Deucalion, a more skilled warrior, defeated him but spared his life, a mercy Talon perceived as the ultimate humiliation. Lyra and Deucalion married, and their union was celebrated across the land. But Talon's bitterness festered. He retreated to his kingdom, his heart hardening into a core of ice. He married for politics, not love, and when his wife died giving birth to Jared, he felt nothing but the cold calculation of an heir secured. His chance for vengeance came years later, with the discovery of the dormant dragon spirits. Both kingdoms sought to awaken them. Deucalion's queen Lyra, in a desperate and fatal ritual, successfully awakened the ancient fire dragon, but the strain killed her as the spirit passed into their newborn daughter, Elsa. Talon, meanwhile, used a darker, more controlled method. He forced the water dragon spirit into his own son, Jared, then a boy of 7. The process was excruciating, a violation that stole Jared's childhood and replaced it with a surging, frigid power. Talon didn't see a son in pain. He saw a weapon forged. He saw his key to finally defeating the man who had taken everything from him. This was the legacy Jared carried. His very existence was a monument to his father's vengeance. A sharp knock on his chamber door severed the harp's melody. The servant on the other side didn't enter, merely delivering the dreaded summons. "The king demands your presence in the training grounds, your highness." Jared's shoulders, which had been relaxed in his music, tensed. He set the harp down with a tenderness he showed nothing else and rose gingerly, the ever-present chill of the dragon within him seeping into his bones. The training ground was not a field under the open sky, but a cavernous, magically reinforced basement deep beneath the palace. The air was perpetually cold, and the walls were etched with powerful runes, the work of the 7 mages Talon employed. Their primary purpose was not to keep enemies out, but to keep the water dragon, to keep Jared in. Talon stood waiting, his arms crossed, his expression one of cold appraisal. "You are slow today. Sentiment weakens you." Without preamble, he gestured to 5 armored warriors standing at the ready. "They are traitors condemned to die. Make their deaths useful. No holding back." Jared felt a familiar numbness descend. This was the ritual, the suppression of all feeling, the embrace of the ice. He moved. The fight was not a battle. It was the execution. Jared was a whirlwind of controlled, lethal grace. Water coalesced into razor-sharp shards of ice, flying with pinpoint accuracy. He froze a man's sword arm solid and shattered it with a kick. He encased another in a tomb of ice, suffocating him in seconds. The last, he simply impaled with a lance of frozen water he formed from the moisture in the air. It was over in moments, the 5 men lying broken and still on the cold stone. The ice melted, mingling with their blood. Talon nodded, a flicker of satisfaction in his eyes. Good. Your control improves. But something in Jared snapped. The sight of the blood, the casual cruelty, the endless cycle of death. The fragile artist who played the harp could take no more. With a guttural cry that was all his own, he spun towards his father, his hand outstretched. A sphere of condensed supercooled ice, glowing with a pale blue light, shot from his palm, flying straight for Talon's heart. Never connected. One of the ever-watchful mages gestured, and a shimmering barrier of energy deflected the ice sphere, which shattered harmlessly against the ruined wall. Talon didn't even flinch. He looked at his son, not with anger, but with cold, predatory approval. That fire in your eyes. That is what I need. Direct that hatred at our true enemy. He walked closer, his voice dropping to a venomous whisper. You will do everything I command. You will train until your body screams. You will kill until your soul feels nothing. And you will not rest until you bring me the head of King Deucalion. His kingdom, his legacy, and his caged dragon daughter will be mine. This I swear. Talon was not bluffing about transforming Jared. If there's one thing the volatile prince knew about his father, it was his words. He kept it. The training room was a circular, stone-walled chamber adjacent to Elsa's tower, Spartan and smelling of old incense and dust. Princess Elsa sat in the lotus position on a worn velvet cushion, her eyes closed, but her mind was a churning sea of rebellion. Breathe in the calm, breathe out the fire, intoned Rachel, her trainer. Rachel was a woman of few lines on her face but immense depth in her calm brown eyes. Visualize the dragon as a part of you, not a force against you. Elsa's eyes snapped open. I can't do this anymore, Rachel. Day after day, the same mantras, the same breathing. For what? So I can be a better prisoner. I'm done. I want to stop. Rachel remained unperturbed, her hands folded in her lap. What do you want, Elsa? To be free, Elsa exclaimed, the words bursting from her with the heat of a smothered forge. That is a concept, not a want, Rachel replied, her voice even. What do you truly want? Frustrated tears pricked Elsa's eyes. I want a normal life. To walk in the gardens, to talk to people, to not be a thing to be managed. Rachel shook her head slowly. That is a fantasy. The dragon is part of you, as your heart is part of you. Wishing for a life without it is wishing for a life without breath. It is not your truth. Again. What do you want? Defeated, Elsa slumped back into the lotus position. A bitter, familiar mantra hummed on her lips, the sounds empty of meaning, a cage within a cage. The next day, as Elsa was being led back to her room from her morning meal, she heard voices in the hallway, her father's and Hiram's. She pressed herself against the cold stone wall. Just around the corner, her breath held. I cannot, Hiram. Deucalion's voice was ragged, stripped of all kingly authority. I look at her and I see Lyra. To send her into that war, to turn her into a weapon. It would be a betrayal of everything her mother died for. I would rather lose my throne. You may yet have to make that choice. Hiram's voice was gentle but firm. The elders will not relent. Then let them come for my crown. Deucalion's whisper was fierce. I will not hand them my daughter. She is my child, not a strategic resource. I know, my friend, Hiram said. And I will stand beside you, even if the entire council stands against us. You are her father first. Never forget that. Elsa's eyes welled with tears, But they were not tears of anger or self-pity. They were tears of a profound, aching understanding. She had been so focused on her own cage that she had never seen the one her father was trapped in. A cage of duty, prophecy, and love. She missed him. She missed the man who would sneak her sweet cakes before dinner, the man who would tell her stories of the constellations, the man he was before the weight of the war and the prophecy had bowed his shoulders. In that moment, her desire shifted, crystallizing into something pure and powerful. That afternoon, in the training room, Rachel began the session as always. "Princess Elsa, what do you want?" Elsa did not hesitate. Her stormy gray eyes were clear and steady. "I want my father back." A genuine warm smile broke across Rachel's face. It was the first true smile Elsa had seen from her in years. "Finally," Rachel breathed. "The truth." From a small velvet pouch at her belt, Rachel produced a necklace. It was simple, a leather cord holding a pendant of dark, unpolished obsidian carved into the shape of a single, elegant flame. "This is the ember pendant," Rachel said, placing it in Elsa's hand. It was warm to the touch. "As long as you wear it, you can consciously suppress the dragon's aura and assume a fully human form. You can walk among others, and the dragon will only emerge when you consciously call upon it." Elsa stared at the necklace, her heart pounding with a wild, hopeful rhythm. "My father. Does he know about this?" "He does," Rachel nodded. "It was forged on his orders years ago. But he wanted to be sure you could find the balance within yourself first. The pendant is a tool, Elsa, not a cure. True control must come from here." She tapped a finger over Elsa's heart. "Your father needed to know you wanted control for the right reasons. Not just for freedom but for connection. For love." With trembling fingers, Elsa clasped the necklace around her throat. The moment the obsidian flame rested against her skin, she felt a gentle, drawing-in sensation. The faint, ever-present shimmer of sapphire scales on her skin faded, leaving behind smooth, unmarked flesh. The low, humming pressure of the dragon's presence in her mind receded to a quiet, manageable whisper. A sob of relief and joy escaped her. "Thank you," she whispered to Rachel, before turning and rushing for the door. "I have to see him. I have to talk to him." She burst out of the training room, no longer a caged dragon, but a daughter running to her father, the simple, powerful truth of what she wanted finally guiding her path. Elsa's hand was on the door handle, freedom just to pull away, when Rachel's voice, sharp as a whip crack, stopped her. "Stop!" Elsa froze, her heart sinking. She turned to see Rachel standing, her usual calm replaced by a stern resolve. The air in the training room began to stir, lifting the loose strands of Rachel's hair. "You wish to leave this room. To see your father. You will do so only when you have proven you are ready. You will beat me in a duel." "A duel?" "Rachel, I don't want to fight you," Elsa protested. "The world will not ask what you want," Rachel countered, her voice echoing slightly in the now breezy chamber. "It will force you to fight. Now, show me the control you claim to have found." There was no refusing. Elsa saw the truth in her trainer's eyes. This was the final test. She took a deep breath, her fingers finding the obsidian flame pendant. Instead of suppressing the dragon, she focused on it, on the connection she had just forged. She didn't let it consume her, she invited it. A wave of heat, dry and ancient, washed out from her. The air shimmered. A coat of intricate scale-like mail, forged of living sapphire fire, materialized over her skin, cloaking her body in a mantle of roaring, beautiful flames. Her stormy eyes now glowed with ferocious orange light. She was both terrifying and magnificent. Across from her, Rachel was now surrounded by a vortex of howling wind. She was a wind mage, her hands moving in fluid gestures, shaping the air into invisible shields and sharp, cutting blades. "Come, princess," Rachel commanded. Rachel struck first, a blade of compressed air shooting towards Elsa. Elsa reacted on instinct, a wall of fire erupting before her, the heat dispersing the air attack with a deafening whoosh. She retaliated with a lash of flame, but Rachel was already gone, a blur of motion propelled by her own winds. Elsa was powerful, but Rachel was experienced. The wind mage dodged and weaved, her attacks coming from all sides, forcing Elsa to defend, to expend her energy. A particularly sharp gust of wind slipped through her defenses, slicing a stinging cut across her arm. The pain was sharp, clearing her head. She stopped trying to hit Rachel and instead started to feel her. She felt the currents of air, the eddies and flows created by Rachel's magic. She saw the pattern, the slight pause as Rachel gathered wind for a major strike. As Rachel drew her hands back for a powerful concussive blast, Elsa didn't raise a shield. She poured all her focus, all her will, into a single concentrated point. A thin, incandescent spear of white-hot fire, no thicker than a needle, shot from her fingertip. It wasn't meant to kill. It was meant to disrupt. It pierced through the gathering vortex of wind and struck the stone floor directly between Rachel's feet. The result was instantaneous. The concentrated heat caused a miniature explosion, not of fire, but of superheated air. The shockwave knocked Rachel off her feet, breaking her concentration and sending her tumbling to the ground, the howling winds dying instantly. Elsa stood panting, the flames around her subsiding. The sapphire mail faded, and her eyes returned to their stormy gray. She rushed to Rachel's side. "Rachel, are you all right?" Rachel looked up, a faint smile on her lips as she rubbed her shoulder. "Sheer luck," she grunted. "But sometimes luck is all you need." "You passed. Oh. See your father." Elsa didn't need to be told twice. She fled the training room and ran through the palace corridors, her feet flying over the polished floors. She found King Deucalion in his study, staring at a map, his face etched with worry. "Father!" He turned, and his eyes widened, first in shock at her sudden disheveled appearance, and then in dawning comprehension as his gaze fell upon the obsidian flame resting against her throat. Before he could speak, Elsa threw her arms around him in a crushing hug. "I understand now, father. I understand." Deucalion held her tightly, his own arms trembling. "Elsa, my child, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to keep you from the world. I only wanted to keep you safe." She pulled back, placing a hand on his cheek. "Shoo, I'm not angry. Not anymore. Thank you. Thank you for trying to protect me and the villagers. I promise I will keep the necklace on. I will learn control." Tears welled in the king's eyes. He nodded, his voice thick with emotion. "Then you may leave the tower. You may go into the village. But," he added, holding up a finger, "you must be accompanied by guards. For your safety, and for my peace of mind." Elsa beamed, her heart feeling lighter than it had in a decade. "I accept." The next morning, as the sun rose over Dragon Crest, Princess Elsa, dressed in a simple, elegant gown with the obsidian pendant hidden beneath it, walked through the palace gates. 2 loyal guards followed at a respectful distance. She breathed in the air of the city, the smell of baking bread, the sound of merchants hawking their wares, the sight of children playing. It was everything she had dreamed of. But in the shadows of a bustling marketplace, a man with a faint telltale sigil of a water droplet sewn into his cloak watched her. He noted her face, her silver hair, the 2 guards. He melted into the crowd, found a quiet alley, and sent a small, enchanted water wisp streaking towards the north, towards Heimdall. The message it carried was simple and devastating. The bird has left its nest. The fire dragon walks among the people. Meanwhile, Jared stood panting in the center of the rune-etched circle. His hands numb, a thin layer of frost coating his tunic. King Talon circled him like a shark, his criticism a relentless, chilling drizzle. "Your form is sluggish. The ice lacks sharpness. You are thinking, not acting. A weapon does not think." Just then, a wisp of shimmering condensed water vapor, no larger than a hummingbird, darted into the chamber and dissolved into a droplet in Talon's outstretched palm. As it touched his skin, a message echoed silently in his mind. A slow, predatory smile spread across Talon's face, a sight more terrifying than any scowl. He turned to Jared, the intensity in his eyes shifting from critique to a manic glee. "What would you give, my son, to step outside these walls? To walk in the sun without chains, real or imagined?" Jared stared, his breath misting in the cold air. He was wary his father's gifts always came with barbed hooks. "I am not in the mood for your games, father." "This is no game," Talon said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "I offer you a true bargain, your freedom, in exchange for one simple task." Jared remained silent, his heart a conflicted drumbeat of hope and dread. "Lure the fire dragon vessel here," Talon said, his eyes gleaming. "The Princess Elsa. Bring her to our palace." A cold that had nothing to do with his powers seeped into Jared's bones. "And what will you do with her when I bring her?" "Why, we will complete your destiny, of course," Talon said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "We will extract the ancient fire dragon spirit from her and merge it with your own. Imagine it, Jared. The ultimate power. Fire and ice united in one being. In you. You will be a god, and I will be the father of a god." Jared felt a wave of nausea. He had always known his father was ruthless, ambitious, and cruel. But this was a new level of monstrous. To tear a spirit from another living person, a process he knew was agonizing and fatal, just for more power. His father wasn't just power-hungry. He was a psycho, willing to destroy two lives for his own twisted vision. Yet the offer hung in the air, your freedom. The chance to be more than a weapon, to play his harp under an open sky, to be Jared, not just the vessel. He swallowed the bile rising in his throat. There was no choice. Refusal meant more endless days in this frozen hell. Acceptance, at least, offered a path however dark. "I accept," Jared said, his voice hollow. "Excellent." Talon clapped his hands. He gestured, and a contingent of 6 of his most ruthless personal guards stepped from the shadows. "They will accompany you. To ensure your focus." Jared's heart sank. He was not being granted freedom. He was being given a longer leash, with muzzles attached. He fastened his own dragon necklace, a simple cord with a carved water droplet pendant, under his tunic, hiding the symbol of his power. Talon handed him a merchant's simple tunic and a pouch of coins. "You have 1 month. Do not fail me." Disguised as a fruit merchant from a neutral territory, with his guards posing as sullen laborers, Jared crossed the border into Dragoncrest. The border guards, seasoned and astute, eyed their papers with suspicion. One pointed to the calluses on the laborers' hands, the calluses of soldiers, not farmers. "These men," the guard began, his hand moving to his sword hilt. He never finished his sentence. In a blur of motion, Jared's workers had their daggers out. It was over in seconds, the border guards lying dead, their bodies unceremoniously dragged into the woods and hidden. The violence was swift, efficient, and it made Jared's stomach turn. This was the reality of his father's command. But as they moved deeper into Dragoncrest, something unexpected happened. The air changed. It was warmer, filled with the scent of pine and baking bread, not damp stone and fear. He saw people laughing in the streets, children chasing a dog, an old man peacefully whittling wood on a stoop. There was a homely, vibrant atmosphere here that he had never known. For the first time in years, he felt a flicker of something other than cold duty or simmering resentment. He felt alive. He watched a young couple walk by, their hands linked, and felt a pang of an emotion so foreign he barely recognized it. Longing. Then he remembered his father's words, the mission, the dead border guards. The weight of it all crashed down on him, and his shoulders slumped. This feeling of life, of peace, was an illusion. His days here were numbered, and his purpose was to betray this kingdom and destroy the one person who might understand the cage he lived in. He was not a visitor. He was a predator, and the hunt had already begun. The news arrived at the palace like a sudden winter frost. King Deucalion read the dispatch, his face hardening into a mask of grim tension. the bodies of his border guards, found hidden in a thicket near the Heimdall crossing. It wasn't an act of war. It was an infiltration. He summoned Elsa immediately. "The Viper has sent his spies into our garden," he told her, his voice low and urgent. "You must be more vigilant than ever. Your guards are to stay at your side, not a dozen paces away. No wandering." Elsa saw the genuine fear in his eyes and placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "I promise, father. I will be careful." True to her word, she was cautious when she ventured out later that day. The weekly market was in full, vibrant swing, the air thick with the smells of spices, roasting meat and fresh bread. Her two guards shadowed her closely, their eyes constantly scanning the crowd. Elsa, however, was drawn to the colorful pyramids of fruits. She was a passionate fruit lover, a small, simple joy she had discovered since her liberation. And that's when she saw him. His stall was neat, his fruits arranged with an artist's care. But it was the trader himself who captivated her. He had kind, thoughtful eyes the color of a forest stream, and a smile that seemed to warm the very air around him. He wasn't like the other merchants who shouted their wares. He spoke softly, knowledgeably about the provenance of his fruits. "These sunberries are from the southern valleys," he said, his voice a pleasant, calm baritone as she approached. "They're sweeter this time of year, kissed by just the right amount of rain and sun. Unlike some people, who are only kissed by the sun." He gave her a playful, pointed look, noting her pale complexion. Elsa, so used to being treated with either reverence or fear, felt a genuine, unguarded laugh bubble up. "And what would you know about that?" she retorted, feeling a thrill at the casual banter. "More than you might think," he said, his eyes twinkling. "I'm Jared." She didn't give her real name, using the simple alias she'd adopted for the market. "I'm Ilara." He was witty, charming, and asked her questions not about her status or family, but about her opinions. What was her favorite season? Did she prefer the mountains or the sea? He listened to her answers as if they were the most fascinating things he'd ever heard. To Elsa, it felt like he was seeing her. Not the princess, not the dragon vessel, just Elsa. He felt like the only person in the world who truly knew the person hidden inside the gilded cage. Jared, for his part, played his part with a master's skill. He found her beauty startling, her silver hair and stormy eyes unlike anyone he had ever seen. Her laughter was a sound he wanted to hear again. But beneath the charm, his mind was a whirlpool of conflict. This was the bird. The vessel. She was nothing like the monster his father had described. It was lovely, and his mission felt more like a betrayal with every passing moment. Their connection was a whirlwind. Elsa began to visit his stall daily. Jared always welcomed her with a warm smile and a generously filled basket of her favorite fruits, refusing payment. "The pleasure of your company is payment enough," he'd say, and she'd blush. Soon the public market wasn't enough. The risk was immense, but the pull was irresistible. They began to sneak out at night. Elsa would use her knowledge of the palace's quieter passages, while Jared would slip away from the watchful eyes of his own guards. They met in a secluded, moonlit apple orchard on the palace's outskirts. There, surrounded by the sweet scent of ripening fruit, they would talk for hours. He told her stories of traveling the land, carefully fabricated tales that omitted Heimdall, and she confessed her loneliness, her years in the tower, speaking of it as a strict, sheltered upbringing. She felt she had found a kindred spirit. He felt he was falling into an abyss of his own making, charmed by the very person he was destined to destroy. Each night, as he returned to his lodgings, the weight of his father's ultimatum felt heavier, and the image of Elsa's trusting smile became a brand of shame on his soul. The trap was set, but Jared was no longer sure who was truly caught in it. Days rolled into weeks. The heat between Elsa and Jared was felt by chirping crickets and croaking frogs. They were meeting another night. Elsa was almost impossible to be tamed, as she waited for nightfall. Finally it was time. The moon-washed apple orchard had become a sanctuary, A secret world woven from whispered secrets and the intoxicating scent of blossoming love. But for Jared, it had become a torture chamber of his own conscience. Each touch of Elsa's hand, each unguarded laugh, felt like a shard of glass in his soul. He was madly, hopelessly in love with her, and the knowledge of his betrayal was a poison slowly killing him. Tonight he had decided. He would tell her everything. His true name, his lineage, the monstrous purpose that had first brought him to Dragoncrest. He would throw himself on her mercy and pray that the connection they shared was strong enough to withstand the truth. But as he approached their meeting spot under the ancient gnarled oak, he felt the invisible, ever-present gaze of his father's trusted guard, Kale, from the shadows. There was no escaping those watchful eyes. Not even here, not even in their most intimate moments. The words he longed to speak died in his throat before they even met. His internal turmoil was compounded by a brutal ultimatum delivered that morning. A water wisp had brought a final icy command from Talon. Your time is up. Return. Meanwhile in the palace, King Deucalion had jolted awake from a sleep plagued by a nightmare so vivid he could still smell the ash. He saw Elsa, her silver hair matted with blood, the light gone from her stormy eyes, as Talon stood over her, laughing. He found Elsa preparing to retire and begged her, his voice cracking with raw fear, to stay within the palace walls. It was just a dream, father, Elsa said, though a chill had settled in her own heart. Please, he pleaded. For me. She looked into his desperate eyes and made a promise she knew she would break. I won't leave the palace. I promise. But Jared had been different tonight, intense. He'd said he had something important to tell her. She was sure it was a declaration of love. She had to go. Sneaking out with practiced ease, she hurried to the orchard. But the space under the oak was empty. A cold dread, entirely separate from her father's warning, began to creep in. She waited for an hour, the cheerful chirping of crickets sounding like a mockery. Just as despair was about to claim her, a figure emerged from the tree line. Jared! She breathed in relief, rushing forward. But he stood stiffly, not opening his arms to her. The moonlight, which usually softened his features, now carved them into a mask of anguish. Elsa, he whispered, his voice ragged. It was then that the moonlight caught the glint of something at his throat. A simple cord, and hanging from it, an ice pendant she had never seen him wear. Recognition slammed into her with the force of a physical blow. The symbol of Heimdall. The water dragon vessel. The stories her father had told her of the ruthless ice prince. The world tilted. No. The word was a broken whisper. It can't be you. Tears welled in her eyes, not of sadness, but of utter devastation. The foundation of her new, beautiful world crumbled into dust. All of it a lie. I'm sorry, Jared said, his own eyes glistening. I wish we had met in better circumstances. Before Elsa could scream, before she could summon a spark of her fire, a sharp sting pierced the side of her neck. Her hand flew to the spot, finding a small, feathered dart. A wave of dizziness washed over her, the world swimming into blurry, unfocused shapes. The last thing she felt was Jared's arms catching her as she fell, and the last thing she heard was his voice, fierce and protective, snarling at someone unseen. Don't touch her. She's mine to carry. The return to the cold, damp palace of Heimdall was a funeral procession for Jared's soul. When Talon saw Jared carrying the unconscious Elsa into the throne room, his face split into a wide, triumphant grin. My son, you have done it, he boomed, striding forward. You have proven your worth. Go rest. I will take it from here. Jared held Elsa tighter. What will happen to her? Talon's smile didn't falter. The extraction process will begin at dawn. Once the fire dragon spirit is yours, the vessel is of no further use. The casual dismissal of her life shattered Jared's last shred of compliance. No, I won't let you kill her. He made to turn to run, but Talon simply sighed. I knew it. The moment I saw you look at her. Love has made you weak. A danger to our mission. Before Jared could react, the 7 mages stationed around the room raised their hands in unison. A shimmering, net-like energy shot from their fingertips, wrapping around him in a cocoon of pure magic. "Father!" Jared roared. He ripped the water pendant from his neck, letting the dragon's power surge through him. Ice exploded outwards, and he began to transform, scales erupting on his skin, his body expanding. But the magical cocoon expanded with him, constricting, unbreakable. He was a dragon trapped in a net of light, thrashing against bonds that tightened with every movement. The mages chanted in unison, their voices a low, resonant hum. The light of the cocoon flared brighter, searing his senses. A crushing weight of magical forced sedation pressed down on him. His mighty dragon form shuddered, the ice receding. As his consciousness faded, the last thing he saw was his father, a look of cold satisfaction on his face, lifting Elsa's limp body and carrying her away from him into the darkness. Meanwhile, back home, the silence in Princess Elsa's chambers was deafening. Dawn had broken and she was not there. A frantic search of the palace yielded nothing. Then, a soldier returned from the apple orchard, his face grim. In his outstretched palm lay the obsidian flame necklace, its leather cord snapped, lying in the dew-kissed grass where a struggle had clearly taken place. King Deucalion took the pendant, his hand trembling. The symbol of his hope for his daughter's controlled future felt like a funeral stone. He crumpled, falling to his knees in the grand hallway, a broken sob racking his large frame. "My daughter. My Elsa. Failed her. I failed Lyra." Hiram was at his side in an instant, his own heart heavy. He placed a firm hand on the king's shoulder. "No, my friend. You have never failed her. You have loved her. Now is not the time to break. It is the time to fight. Talon has her. And we both know what that means." Deucalion looked up, his eyes red-rimmed but blazing with a new fire. The extraction. It would kill her. He rose to his feet, his grief hardening into a resolve of tempered steel. "Ready, my horse. Gather the dragon guard. We ride for Heimdall." Jared awoke to the bite of cold iron manacles around his wrists, chained to the damp rune-covered wall of a cell. The memory of the cocooning spell and Elsa being taken away sent a fresh wave of panic through him. He had to find her. Closing his eyes, he did what he had been trained to do. He reached for the dragon within, not to fight but to seek. He pushed his consciousness into the spiritual realm where the dragons communed, a vast, elemental plane. He searched through swirling mists of energy until he found her. Her spirit was a flickering, terrified flame amidst the oppressive, cold pressure of the water magic trying to suppress it. "Elsa!" his spirit called out. She recoiled. "Ooh. Get away from me. I'm sorry. Elsa, please, you have to believe me. Everything I felt for you was real. My father. He has kept me a prisoner my whole life, just as yours did. A weapon. Thing. You are the only real thing that has ever happened to me." He poured out his truth, the relentless training, the forced killings, the emotional isolation, the mission that had become his damnation. Slowly, he felt her fury ebb, replaced by a shared, profound understanding of their parallel cages. "It doesn't matter now," her spirit whispered, despairing. "It's too late. They're going to take it from me." "No, it's not," Jared insisted, his spirit reaching for hers. "Listen to me. Your dragon, the ancient fire, it is the most powerful spirit in existence. It is not meant to be controlled like mine. It must be unleashed. You have to stop fighting it and let it become you. Completely. The prophecy." She trembled. "I'll destroy everything. I will be here with you," he promised, his spirit form wrapping around hers in a protective, desperate embrace. "I am the water to your fire. I will be your anchor. Trust your dragon, Elsa. It is a part of you. It will not destroy you. It will save you." In the ritual chamber, the 7 mages chanted in a low, guttural rhythm. Elsa's physical body lay on a stone altar, encircled by glowing blue runes. Talon watched, his eyes gleaming with avarice, as tendrils of blue energy began to pry at the edges of her spirit, trying to pull the fiery essence from her core. It was like trying to pry open a star. A low rumble started deep within Elsa, a sound that shook the very foundations of the palace. The blue tendrils of magic sizzled and evaporated. Her eyes flew open, but they were no longer human. They were pools of molten lava. The air itself caught fire. Sapphire blue scales, not of mail, but of living, armored plate, erupted across her body. She grew, her form expanding, shattering the stone altar. Wings of flame and smoke tore from her back. With a roar that was the sound of the world's first volcano, the fully realized fire dragon stood in the heart of the palace, a being of pure, apocalyptic fury. She spat a river of lava, engulfing the 7 mages. Their screams were swallowed by the inferno. Talon, his face a mask of terror, stumbled back, shielding himself with a hastily conjured wall of ice that melted instantly. He turned and fled, scrambling over melting stone as his palace collapsed into chaos around him. King Deucalion and his elite dragon guard crested the hill overlooking Heimdall. The sight that met them stole the breath from their lungs. The palace was a raging inferno, and in its center, a colossal fire dragon, magnificent and terrible, was reducing the fortress to slag. Deucalion fell to his knees. No, Elsa. The prophecy had come true. He had failed. His daughter was lost, consumed by the beast. But then, through the smoke and flames, he saw a figure fleeing the destruction. King Talon, surrounded by a horde of his panicked soldiers, was trying to escape. Rage, white-hot and purer than any grief, filled Deucalion. "With me," he roared. They charged down the hill, cutting through Talon's disorganized guards with ruthless efficiency. They surrounded the king of Heimdall, disarming his last protectors. Deucalion grabbed Talon by his cloak, dragging him close. "What did you do to my daughter?" he screamed into the man's face. Talon, coughing on ash, looked up at the destroying angel of fire that had once been a princess and laughed, a broken, hysterical sound. "I did nothing. You were right all along, Deucalion. Your daughter's dragon cannot be extracted. It is too powerful. You didn't cage a monster. You raised a goddess." Deucalion looked from Talon's mad face back to the fire dragon, which had ceased its destruction and was now simply standing amidst the ruins, its great molten eyes scanning the scene. And in that moment, he dared to hope that perhaps not all was lost. "Elsa!" he roared, fighting against the arms holding him back. He had to get to her. "Your Majesty, you cannot!" Hiram shouted, his grip like iron. "The entire structure is coming down. You must be strong for her now, not a ghost beside her." In the chaos of their struggle, a flash of movement. Talon, thought to be fleeing, had circled back, his face a mask of feral hatred. Seizing the distraction, he lunged, a dagger glistening with a sickly green poison sinking deep into Deucalion's side. The king gasped, his strength vanishing as a cold fire spread from the wound. Hiram's roar of grief and fury was more bestial than human. He released Deucalion, his sword a blur of silver. He did not duel, he executed. Talon fell in a heap. His reign of terror ended in a bloody, inglorious instant. Hiram dropped to his knees, cradling his dying friend, pressing his hands against the wound as the poison worked its vile magic. "Hold on, Deucalion. Hold on." Inside the spiritual realm, the battle was just as desperate. Jared's water dragon, powerful and majestic, was like a winter storm against the sun. Elsa's fire dragon was the king of all dragons, a primal force of creation and destruction. He could not overpower her. He could only try to reach her. He saw it then, a faint, shimmering crack in the immense, fiery cocoon of power that housed Elsa's true spirit at the dragon's heart. It was all the opening he needed. Abandoning his attack, he poured his own essence, his water dragon spirit, not as a weapon but as a lifeline. He maneuvered his cool, calming energy through the crack, a gentle stream flowing into a supernova. "Elsa," he whispered across their bond, his spirit fading fast from the effort. "Come back to me." Inside the raging inferno of her own power, Elsa jolted. She felt a coolness, a familiar presence, Jared's love, his sacrifice. It was an anchor in the storm. With a monumental effort of will, she stopped fighting the dragon and instead embraced it. She didn't suppress the power, she took its reins. The colossal fire dragon, which had been a mindless force of nature, stilled. Its molten eyes blinked, and intelligence returned to their depths. In the physical world, the dragon's roar of mindless rage softened into a deep, controlled hum. The uncontrolled inferno began to recede, the flames bending to a conscious will. Elsa's human form rematerialized within the dragon's heart, and then she was herself again, standing amidst the cooling rubble. Her thoughts flew to Jared. She remembered his chains. With a thought, the flames parted before her, creating a path. She found him in the basement cell, unconscious and barely breathing, his body broken from the spiritual ordeal. She tore the manacles from the wall with a surge of strength she didn't know she possessed, cradling his limp form. Summoning a portion of the dragon's power, wings of flame carried them out of the rubble and into the courtyard, where she landed softly. Her heart soared at the sight of her father, only to shatter an instant later. Hiram held him, and Deucalion's skin was a ghastly gray, the life fading from his eyes. "Father!" She laid Jared gently on the ground and rushed to her father's side. Deucalion looked up at her, his eyes full of a wonder that eclipsed his pain. "Elsa!" He breathed, a trickle of black blood at his lip. "You controlled it. I am so proud of you." His eyes fluttered shut. "No, no, please," Elsa cried, looking from her father's stilling form to Jared's lifeless one. She looked up at the sky, begging the dragon within. "Please, save them. I command you. Save them both." From the shadows of the ruined archway, an old woman emerged, the priestess of Heimdall, her face etched with the weight of the tragedy. "The balance of life and death is not even a dragon's to command, child of fire," the priestess said, her voice weary. "The magic required to pull a soul back from the veil. There is only enough for one. You must choose." The agony of the decision was a pain worse than any fire. Her father, who had loved and caged her in equal measure to keep her safe. Or Jared, her betrayer and savior, who had shown her the truth of her power and given his life to bring her back. Tears, hot as lava, streamed down Elsa's face. She looked at her father's peaceful face, then at Jared, whose love had been his undoing. She took a shuddering breath, her voice barely a whisper. "Save Jared." As the priestess's grim words hung in the air, King Deucalion's eyes fluttered open one last time. The pain was gone, replaced by a profound clarity. He saw his daughter's tear-streaked face, the impossible choice tearing her apart. "Elsa," he whispered, his voice a faint echo of its former strength. A faint smile touched his lips. "I see you, not as a queen or a dragon, but as my little girl. I remember teaching you the names of the stars from your window. The way you would laugh when I brought you the first blossom of spring." He coughed, a weak, rattling sound. My time in this world is spent. I have carried my burdens, and I am tired." "No, father, don't say that," Elsa sobbed, clutching his hand. "Shoo," he soothed. "You have given me the greatest gift. Seeing the woman you have become. Strong, compassionate, free." His gaze shifted to Jared's still form. "Your mother's heart always chose love. It is the strongest magic of all. Do not mourn me. Save him. Live a happy and free life with him. That is my last command, as your father." He gave her hand one final, gentle squeeze. His eyes held hers, full of infinite love and pride, and then the light within them faded. His head grew heavy in her lap. A wail of pure grief tore from Elsa's throat. She bent, kissing his forehead as the tears fell freely onto his face. She held him for a long, quiet moment, the crackle of dying fires the only sound. Then, remembering his words, she gently laid him down. She turned to Jared, her heart a battlefield of sorrow and resolve. She placed her hands on his chest, closing her eyes. She did not call upon the dragon's destructive fury, but on its primal, life-giving warmth, the same heat that fuels the heart of the world. A soft, golden light emanated from her palms, flowing into Jared's still body. He gasped, a sudden violent intake of air, and his body jolted. His eyes flew open, blinking. He pulled her into his arms, and they held each other amidst the ashes of their old lives, their embrace a silent vow to build something new from the wreckage. The war was over, with Talon and Deucalion gone, and the two dragon vessels united in love. The kingdoms of Dragoncrest and Heimdall had no will left to fight. The marriage of Princess Elsa and Prince Jared was not just a union of two people, but of two nations. It was the grandest celebration the land had ever seen, held in the rebuilt courtyards of Dragoncrest, where vibrant banners of fire and water danced together in the breeze. They ruled not as dragon and ice, but as king and queen, with wisdom and compassion. The past was acknowledged, but not allowed to poison the future. Under their joint reign, the lands of Dragoncrest and Heimdall entered an unprecedented era of peace and prosperity, their combined strengths creating a kingdom more resilient and beautiful than either could have been alone. And in the quiet moments in a palace that was no longer a cage, Elsa and Jared found the freedom they had both craved, a freedom built not on power, but on the simple, unshakable foundation of the love that had saved them both.